Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn to configure emergency calling in Inform Voice. Let's go over some important items regarding this feature. First, we have to talk about the numbers that are considered emergency numbers. Numbers vary by country. In the US, it's 911. In other countries, might be different. And also, carriers might provide test emergency numbers. Second, we need to consider the system behavior when a user dials the emergency number. Any terminal must be able to dial it, even if it's totally restricted. The call needs to go out, even if all trunks are busy. And there should be no need to dial an access code to reach the trunk line to dial 911. This requirement came from the Carey's law because a girl named Carey was trying to dial 911 from an hotel room, and she didn't know she needed an access code to reach the trunks, and she couldn't reach 911. Finally, we need to provide information about the location where the emergency call is being made. Originally, it was always the caller ID that need to be sent, but with SIP trunks and mobility, there was a need to, create new laws. And those laws establish a way for next generation 911 services that send information in the SIP messages that allows the public safety answering point, or PSAP, to locate us and send a dispatch. There are two ways to indicate that location, either by reference or by value. And we are going to see how Inform Voice complies with all those items we just mentioned. So let's go to our system and let me show you how we configure on this. Let's talk about the numbers, considered emergency numbers. Those are defined in the telephony areas. If you remember about telephony areas, those were built from templates that were built per country, and even more than one template for each country. So that template contains which are the emergency numbers. It doesn't mean that we cannot modify that and we cannot add that numbers to it, but we have an initial reference. So let's see what we have in our system. So our system is composed by 3 offices in 3 different cities. So in our case, we will have 3 different telephony areas, one for each of the offices. Let's click on the Chicago telephony area, and we'll see that there is a field called number ranges. There are 4 different number ranges, and one of them is emergency numbers. And you can see the 911 here. Now, carriers provide 933 as a number to test emergency, so we can add it to the telephony area. And then once we test it, we can remove it. So the same will happen with our Orlando telephony area. So we can add 933 to Orlando. And with the Las Vegas telephony area, we'll do the same. Now, the way that Inform Voice operates is whenever that number is dialed, it takes precedence over everything else. It overrides any restriction the terminal has. It doesn't need access codes to be dialed. And if all trunks are busy, the system automatically knocks down a call and routes the 911 call through that trunk. So we basically comply with Carey's law and with all the requirements for the urgency that a 911 call deserves. So now let's consider our last point, which is how do we inform the location of the 911 call. For that, we need to assign a specific item in the programming called emergency groups. So in our general tab, we locate the item emergency groups, and we will add an emergency group. In our case, we have 3 cities, so we assume that there are 3 different 911 operators that take care of each city. So we need to group the stations that will report the emergency or on a specific PSAP. So this is why this emergency group is for. So let's give it a name. Now, we can specify what caller ID are we going to set. We can use the DID as a caller ID, the station's DID as a caller ID, or we can use a specific caller ID. Sometimes the carriers request to add numbers to a specific caller ID. So, for example, let's use this number as a number for the Chicago area. Now we need to group the stations that will be part of this emergency group. But first of all, we need to assign which trunks are we going to use. As you can see, we cannot add any station until we add a trunk. So we will add the trunk. In our case, Chicago trunk is the hub number 3. So I will say, well, okay, so I will use Chicago trunking system to make my 911 call. Sometimes carriers do provide specific trunks for that, for 911 calls, and we can use those specific trunks for 911. We can add more than one, so we have choice as long as the E911 service is provided to us that trunk. So once we have the trunk, we can add the stations. So now, as we assigning the emergency group for Chicago, I can filter all the stations that belong to Chicago. So I have all those, and I can mark them all. And I click on them. Lastly, we can add users to an emergency group in case that we have users using UC client, which are mobile. So the UC client can select where it is at a certain point in time and call the proper emergency number or emergency PSAP when the user makes a 911 call. So let's, for example, take one user, and then I will show you on that user how an E911 call looks like. So let's take Beth Davidson here. Okay, so basically we defined a group, and If we don't need next generation 911, that's all we need to do. If we need an next generation 111, we need to provide a dispatchable location. We have two choices, and obviously that will depend on the carrier that the customer uses. So it's always the customer needs to contact the carrier to see what are the requirements for the 911 service. If the 911 service requires location by reference, there is a tab here that says location by reference. And the location by reference is a URL that's being included in the SIP invite message. The URL will depend on the 911 provider. There are companies that provide the 911 service. And depending on that company, the different URL is used. And that URL contains a customer ID and a location ID. So let's say, as an example, we will use the URL for a 911 provider called Bandwidth. So we need to write the URL of that company and the company will provide us, or the carrier or the E911 service will provide us with the customer ID. I will create one, made up one. And then, based on the location of the office, the carrier will provide a location ID. Let's say Chicago. So what's happening is that the SIP message will contain this URL. This URL will be routed to this emergency provider Bandwidth, and Bandwidth will provide the exact location to the PSAP. Let me save this because I'm gonna do something else. In the case that the customer has DECT phones, the DECT phones connect to the system via APs, DECT APs, and the DECT APs are able to provide an ID when the call is made. And the informed voice can take this ID and convert this ID to a location information, which will be added to the URL. So that's a special case for DECT phones. In the case of using location by value instead of location by reference, the carrier or the E911 provider will provide the customer with the precise information he needs to fill in this box. As you can see, you have address, PO information, street, road. So all this information is being sent in the SIP message itself that will allow the E911 operator to provide a dispatchable location to police or ambulance or whoever needs to send. We will create an emergency group for Orlando. Let's use and now we will use Orlando's trunks. We will add Orlando's stations, and we will add our user Beth Davidson. And for our location for by reference, we will use Orlando. So with that, I created the groups. But the final assignment is to tell the trunk itself that it supports the type of dispatchable location by reference. This is done under the user agent for the trunk. In my particular case, if you look at the trunks, both trunks uses a user agent, which is an SBC, NEC SIP 500 gateway. So I need to locate this SBC in the SIP tab of the system properties. The easy way to locate is look for everything that's in use because it should be in use. So I have it here. Here I have it, gateway 500 and this other one. So just change the two of them just in case. If you can see, there is a geolocation header here, and it says that's not supported, so we are not sending anything. So if I want to say send location by reference, I need to flag the value. So let's see what happens when I make a call. So let's open up my microfib and let's see if I can make a call regularly. Turns out that I cannot make any call regularly, but let's see if I can make a 933 call. Oh yes, I can make a 933 call. Okay, so as you see, the station was restricted. It could make a 933 call. So did we send something to the trunk? Well, we can check it using the logs. So we can go to our system. Go to the spherical share, go to application logs, go to MGC, and we try to find our last log file. I can edit. And we always look for the make call reference. And let's try this last call 933. And let's look at what did we do. One of the things that the log will tell us is that an emergency call was placed, and it tells us which geolocation is using. And if we want to see if the actual URL is being sent on the SIP message, I need to find the SIP message. So let's see if we can find it kind of close by here. Here we go. This is the transmit invite, and here is the geolocation. So let's give you an example of what happens with a UC client. This is the UC client that belongs to Beth Davidson. I included Beth Davidson in the 3 emergency groups. Why? Because Beth Davidson, although she has a station in the Las Vegas office, which is the 3005, she also has a cell phone and she can go to different offices. So let's say, for example, that she changes her settings to say, I will use my cell phone. My default device is the cell phone. So you see there is an EMG button here. So in case there is an emergency, anybody can click on the EMG button, and now anybody can select where that person is at this moment in time. So if the person is in Chicago, select Chicago. So then dials 933, for example. The call is being made. And the location being reported now is Chicago. So with the UC client, the difference is that the user can select which location can inform in terms of the 911 call. What about mobile clients? Oh, with mobile clients, it's even different because mobile clients, as they are based on smartphones can be anywhere. So we need to find a way to tell the 911 operator where the smartphone is. So the smartphone can get the location information by itself and add it to a URL. So how is it done? If you remember, in case of the mobile phones, the soft media phones for the mobile phones, we define all the registration information in a tab under System Properties. Well, you can see there is a place for emergency calls. Here, I can add the URL of the customer only. There is no location information. The location information will be added by the mobile client to that URL, and it will be included in the SIP message being sent to the carrier. So, in summary, we learned how to configure emergency calls, how to verify the emergency numbers, how to add numbers to the list, and how to assign the dispatchable location in the case of a next generation 911 system. With that, I thank you, and I see you in the next video.